What if I told you that the secret to transforming your entire life was not hidden in some expensive seminar or locked behind some guru's paywall? What if I told you it was carved into stone over 2,000 years ago by men who faced plagues, wars, exile, and slavery, and still managed to live with more clarity and purpose than 99% of people alive today? Here is the part that will disturb you. What if you have already heard these principles and simply refuse to live by them? That is not an accusation. That is the truth. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome cracked the code of human transformation centuries before the modern world even existed. And their wisdom has survived every empire, every revolution, every technological upheaval for one simple reason. It works. Not because it is clever, because it deals with the one thing that never changes across centuries: the human mind and its capacity for self-deception. Today we are going deep into 8 Stoic principles that will not just improve your life, they will transform it. Immediately, not in some vague, distant future. Starting today, starting now, starting the moment these words land in your mind and refuse to leave. Every principle here is something you can only learn from Stoic philosophy, not from any self-help book on a shelf. If you are serious about change, do one thing for me right now. Hit subscribe. It is free. It takes less than a second, and it ensures that the next time wisdom like this is released, you will be the first to hear it. Stay until the end. The 8th principle is the one that ties everything together. Principle number 1. Accept what you cannot change, not as defeat, but as the beginning of power. Epictetus, who was born a slave, who knew suffering more intimately than most of us ever will, drew a line through the center of human experience that no philosopher before or since has drawn with such devastating precision. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office. He called this the fundamental distinction, and he taught it as the very first lesson to every new student who walked into his school. This is not the watered-down version you have heard before. This is not just accept what you cannot control. This is a complete restructuring of where you place your identity. Most people have built their entire sense of self on things that do not belong to them. Their job title, their relationship status, their physical appearance, their bank account. And because those things are outside their control, their identity is permanently unstable. One phone call, one diagnosis, one betrayal, and the whole edifice collapses. The Stoic transformation begins the moment you relocate your identity from the external to the internal, from what you have to who you are, from what happens to you to how you respond. That relocation is not a thought experiment. It is the most practical thing you will ever do. Because the person whose identity rests on things that cannot be taken is a person who cannot be destroyed. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire while the Antonine Plague killed between 5 and 10 million people across his territories. His co-emperor Lucius Verus died. His most trusted general betrayed him. His own body was failing from what historians believe was stomach cancer. And in his private journal he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He was not theorizing. He was reporting from the battlefield. This is what transformation looks like when it is real, not the absence of suffering. The relocation of power to the one place suffering cannot reach. Here is the practice that will change you. Tonight, write down 5 things you are currently worried about. Then beside each one, write whether it is within your control or outside it. For everything outside your control, write these words: "This is not my territory. I release it." And for everything within your control, write what specific action you will take tomorrow. That division, performed honestly, will release more trapped energy in 30 minutes than most people free in a year. Principle number 2. Treat every setback as material you were given to work with. Marcus Aurelius confronted this principle not as philosophy, but as military reality. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He was not writing a motivational poster. He was describing a strategic principle that he applied on the battlefield, in the Senate, and in the darkest corridors of personal grief. When the Marcomanni tribes invaded across the Danube, when plague decimated his legions, when his treasury was empty and he had to auction the imperial furniture to fund the war, Marcus did not ask why this is happening to me. He asked, what can this be turned into? The shortage of soldiers led him to recruit gladiators and slaves, a radical decision that ultimately strengthened his army with men who had nothing to lose. The depleted treasury forced innovations in supply chains that outlasted his reign. Every obstacle became raw material. This is fundamentally different from optimism. Optimism says everything will be fine. The Stoic says everything can be used. The first is a wish. The second is a skill. And that skill, the ability to transmute adversity into advancement, is the core technology of Stoic transformation. You lost the relationship. That loss has given you solitude, and solitude is the raw material of self-knowledge that no relationship ever provides. You failed at the business. That failure has given you data that no success could have generated, data about your own weaknesses, your blind spots, your capacity for recovery. You were betrayed. That betrayal has given you a ruthless clarity about human nature that will protect you for the rest of your life. None of this means the pain is not real. It means the pain is not wasted. And in a life of limited years, waste is the one thing that is truly unforgivable. The Stoic wastes nothing. Not time, not suffering, not even the worst thing that ever happened to them. Principle number 3. Practice dying every single day. This is the principle that separates Stoic philosophy from every self-help framework that has ever existed. No productivity system will teach you this. No morning routine will prepare you for it. This is exclusively Stoic, and it is the most transformative practice you will ever encounter. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Seneca instructed his student Lucilius, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing." Epictetus reminded his students daily that death sits at the shoulder of every human being and that forgetting this fact is the source of every trivial worry and petty conflict. The Stoics did not meditate on death because they were morbid. They meditated on death because they understood that awareness of mortality is the single most powerful engine of transformation available to a conscious being. When you truly, deeply, in the marrow of your bones understand that this day could be your last, the entire architecture of your priorities collapses and rebuilds itself in an instant. The argument you have been nursing for weeks becomes absurd. The grudge you have been carrying for years becomes unbearable. The dream you have been postponing becomes urgent. The fear that has been paralyzing you becomes irrelevant. Because none of those things survive contact with the reality of your death. They only thrive in the illusion of infinite time. Here is the practice. Every morning, before anything else, sit for 60 seconds and say to yourself, "This could be my last day." Not as a dark thought, as a lens. Then look at your day through that lens and ask, would I spend today the way I have planned to spend it? If the answer is no, change the plan. If the answer is yes, you have just confirmed that you are living in alignment with what truly matters to you. Either outcome transforms the day. Principle number 4. Conduct a nightly audit of your own soul. Seneca practiced this with religious consistency for decades. Every single night, after his wife had fallen asleep and the house was dark, he would review his entire day with the clinical precision of a judge examining evidence. He wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said, hiding nothing from myself and passing nothing by." This is not journaling as the modern world understands it. This is not writing down what you are grateful for. This is not recording your feelings. This is philosophical self-examination, a deliberate, unflinching confrontation with the gap between who you were today and who you aspire to be. Seneca would ask himself where he lost his temper, where he spoke carelessly, where he acted from fear instead of principle, where he was cowardly when courage was required. And he did this not with self-punishment, but with the detached curiosity of a physician diagnosing a patient. Marcus Aurelius called this the evening audit and practiced it throughout his entire reign. In the middle of the most demanding job in the ancient world, he still found time every night to hold himself accountable to his own standards, not the standards of his advisors or the Senate or the people, his own. Most people never examine their days. They let them blur together into weeks and months and years, repeating the same mistakes, reinforcing the same patterns, building the same prison one unconscious brick at a time. The person who audits their soul nightly is the person who grows daily, because awareness of the pattern is the first step to breaking it. Here is the practice. Tonight, before sleep, write down the answers to 3 questions. Where did I act in alignment with my principles today? Where did I fall short? What will I do differently tomorrow? 5 minutes, 3 questions, and over time, those 5 minutes will produce a transformation so gradual and so total that you will not recognize the person you were when you began. If you are still with me at this point, You are already different from 90% of people who started this video. Stay until the end. The final principles are the most powerful. Principle number 5. Test your philosophy in the furnace of voluntary hardship. Here is a question that should terrify you. If everything you have was taken from you tomorrow, who would you be? Not what would you do. Who would you be? Would there be anything left? Or have you built your entire identity on things that can be confiscated by a single stroke of bad fortune? Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, knew exactly who he would be without his wealth, because he tested it regularly, deliberately. He wrote to Lucilius, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" He did not do this out of guilt about his wealth. He did it because he understood that untested philosophy is decoration, and decoration falls off the wall the moment the house shakes. When Seneca was exiled to Corsica by Emperor Claudius on fabricated charges, he lost everything: his position, his influence, his access to Rome, his social standing. 8 years on a barren island. And he did not break, because he had already lived that loss 100 times by choice. The exile was not a shock to his system. It was a condition he had already rehearsed. And because it was rehearsed, his will was prepared for it. This is the Stoic principle of voluntary discomfort, not as punishment, as inoculation. Every time you deliberately choose the harder path, eat the simpler meal, take the cold water, sleep on the floor when a bed is available, you are building proof that your identity does not depend on your comforts. And that proof is the difference between the person who collapses when fortune turns and the person who stands firmer. This week, choose one comfort you rely on and live without it for 3 days. Not forever. 3 days. Enough to prove to yourself that you are more than your conveniences. That proof will be worth more than a year of reading about philosophy. Principle number 6. See people as they are, not as you wish they were. Marcus Aurelius began his meditations with a practice that most people skip over too quickly. He wrote, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall be met with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil.'" This was not cynicism. This was the most compassionate and realistic preparation for human interaction ever devised. Most people walk into every day expecting others to behave according to their private script. The partner should be attentive. The colleague should be competent. The stranger should be polite. The world should be fair. And when the script is violated, as it is violated every single day, they react with shock, anger, and resentment, as if human imperfection were a personal insult. The Stoic transformation happens when you replace expectation with understanding. When you stop demanding that people be what you want them to be and start seeing them for what they are: flawed, contradictory, driven by fears and desires they barely understand themselves. Not because you are cynical, but because you are honest. And honesty about human nature is the only soil in which genuine compassion can grow. Epictetus spent his youth as the property of Epictetus, a man who once twisted his leg until it broke. And Epictetus did not hate him. He understood him. He saw a man trapped in his own ignorance, acting cruelly because cruelty was the only tool he possessed. That understanding did not excuse the act. It freed Epictetus from the prison of resentment. And that freedom is what allowed him to become one of the greatest teachers of human dignity in history. When someone disappoints you this week, before the anger arrives, pause and say this. They are acting from their own confusion. Their behavior is about their struggle, not about my worth. That pause, that reframe, is the difference between a person who is perpetually wounded by others and a person who moves through the world with an unshakable understanding of what human beings actually are. Principle number 7. Understand that your thoughts are the architect of your entire reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And then he added something most people miss. Therefore, guard accordingly, and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature. He was not suggesting positive thinking. He was demanding thought discipline, the deliberate, rigorous curation of the mental content you allow to take residence in your mind. This is a uniquely Stoic insight. Modern psychology has arrived at the same conclusion 2,000 years later, calling it cognitive reappraisal. But the Stoics were practicing it when Rome was still a republic. They understood that between every event and your emotional response to it, there is a judgment, an interpretation, a story you tell yourself about what happened. And that story, not the event itself, is what determines whether you suffer or remain free. Someone criticizes your work. The event is neutral. Words were spoken, but the story you tell yourself, they think I am incompetent. Everyone agrees. I will never succeed. That story is what produces the suffering. Change the story and you change the suffering. Not the event, the meaning, the interpretation, the judgment. Epictetus made this the cornerstone of his entire philosophy. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. And judgments are up to us. That last phrase is the revolution. Judgments are up to us, not determined by circumstance, not dictated by other people, chosen by you every single time. The transformation begins when you start noticing the stories, when you catch yourself in the act of interpretation and ask, is this the only story I could tell about what just happened? The answer is always no, and in that no lies your freedom, because the person who can choose their interpretation of events is the person who can never be imprisoned by them. Principle number 8. Become the person you have been waiting for. This is the principle that ties all the others together, and it is the one that will either transform you or expose you, because it demands something most people are terrified to give: complete and total responsibility for the life they are living. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not what society tells you to be, not what your family expects, not what would be safe or comfortable or approved. What you would be, if every opinion and every expectation and every fear were stripped away. What remains?" The Stoics believe that every human being contains within them the seed of their highest self. Not a perfect self, a virtuous one. A person who acts with courage when fear would be easier. Who chooses honesty when deception would be safer. Who practices justice when selfishness would be more profitable. Who exercises temperance when indulgence would be more pleasurable. Those four virtues, courage, wisdom, justice, temperance, are the Stoic blueprint for the fully realized human being. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the largest empire on earth, measured himself not by his conquests or his popularity, but by those four virtues. Every night, in his journal, he asked himself the same question: did I act today with the courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance that my highest self demands? And when the answer was no, he did not punish himself. He simply resolved to close the gap by 1 inch the following day. 1 inch per day. Over years that became miles. Over a lifetime it became a legacy that has outlived every other emperor who ever sat on that throne. You are not waiting for permission. You are not waiting for the right moment. You are not waiting for someone to tell you that you are ready. You are already the person you have been waiting for. The only thing between you and that person is the decision to start living as them. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect. Today, with whatever you have, from wherever you are. If you have made it to the end of this video, then you have already proven something about yourself. You have proven that you have the patience, the hunger, and the discipline to sit with difficult truths for the time it takes to absorb them. That is rare. That is powerful. That is the first sign of a life in transformation. You are not the same person who pressed play 20 minutes ago. Something has shifted. Something has cracked open. And what pours through that crack will determine the rest of your life. These 8 principles are not ideas to think about. They are instructions to live by. Starting today, starting now, starting with the very next decision you make. Like this video if something inside you has changed. Subscribe so you never miss another lesson that matters. Share this with someone who is standing at the edge of their own transformation, because your share might be the push they need. And go watch the next video in this series, because this is just the beginning of what is possible. You have the principles. You have the knowledge. You have the fire burning inside you right now. The only question left is this: will you act? The answer, I believe, is already written on your heart. Now go live it.